the most part. Although I've had people that come and said, I planted these seeds and it's 2 months later and they haven't come up yet. Obviously theirs doesn't work. So what I will show you is what I know about, and I'm going to talk about the seeds that you plant ahead of time to put out in the garden later as plants. Because most of you know how to plant out in the garden. You're planting larger seeds. You don't have much of a problem with that. It's the stuff you try to start indoors and get them out early. And in Arizona, a lot of plants, especially like tomatoes, need to be out early enough so that you get some tomatoes before the heat hits. It's almost as bad as living up in the North Country with cold. So we need to do that. The next thing is somebody stole one of my seed packets. Well, heck, I had a cucumber seed packet. Well, that don't matter. Anyway, here's one. You need to learn to read the seed packets. I know people don't like to read instructions, but you need to read the seed packet because it will tell you how deep to plant the seed, whether it needs light or not to germinate, how long it's going to take to germinate, all that kind of good stuff that you're just going to be guessing at otherwise. It will not tell you, probably, when to plant outdoors in your area or when to plant indoors for planting outdoors. So we have these. Manuel's going to pass them out, or somebody's going to pass them out. Okay. Those will tell you where to plant for the area you're in, and it goes all the way from 0 to 9,000 feet, I think. So you can pick the area that corresponds to the elevation where you live, if you live lower or higher than here, and that will tell you when to plant different kinds of crops. And that, by the way, is a chapter out of the Master Gardener's Handbook, I think the last one that they had, which is much better than the one I had because I took the very first class that was ever in existence here way back in the Dark Ages. So, you need to read the seed packet, remember that. The other thing is, another thing is, when you plant your seeds to begin with, especially ones you plant indoors, do not plant them in your garden soil. Because there are pathogens in your garden soil that are going to kill the seed right off the bat, probably, if it's not a very good seed. So you want to start in something that is sterile. And I use this germinating mix here, which is not the only be-all and end-all of it, but that's the one I use. And it comes out of this company right here, which is clear back in Vermont, but this is the best one I've found. If you find others, if you find somebody from Vermont, huh? If you find others that are just as good, use them. But the other ones that I've tried, a lot of them had lumps and bumps and stuff in it, and you don't want that when you're planting little tiny seeds. So I get it from there, and it's just gardeners.com if you want to get on the internet and get it. So that's what I use to start with, and it's simply milled moss, and I can never pronounce that word, sphagnum, is it? Sphagnum moss. And I plant, yeah, do you have the, is that the, yeah, okay, that's the, yeah, that's the germination mix. He's going to pass it around.
Just feel it.
Yeah. You can start seeds in any kind of container. You don't have to have something specific. You can use mushroom trays or lettuce trays or whatever. Punch some holes in the bottom, put your dirt in there, put the lid on. When it gets up and hits the lid, take the lid off. But this is more difficult to do than it is to do it in this other method that I use, which is not very expensive and it lasts forever. Because this one you'll have to sit in a pan of water and let it soak up, and then you'll have to remember to put it back in the pan of water and soak up again when it gets, and it doesn't soak up quite as evenly as other things do. So while you can do it this way, you just have to be more careful about what you do. What I use is this method here, and I've tried a lot of different ways, and this one works for me. We've been probably the first ones of these I bought was maybe 15 or 20 years ago, and I'm still using them. So they're not expensive when you consider how long they last. They are a little bit pricey to begin with, but not very.
Do your capillary mats last that long too?
Yeah, they last forever.
Fine.
this is, the bottom has water in it, the tray here has water in it. This is your wicking mat, and you see it falls down into the water so that it soaks up the water. And what you do is wet it down before you put it on here. If you don't wet it down before you put it on, it won't wet very good. So I just get this, fill it full of water, throw the wicking mat in there, get it wet, and put it on here. This end is straight across, and this end hangs in the water.
They do have a gauge that you can get with this. It fits right here because this has a hole here that you fill it with. You don't lift the whole thing out.
Yeah. I forgot to bring one of those to show you, but it's just a little cheap gauge you can get. And then you put this on here, and you dump your soil on top. And I just dump it in the middle. I'm running out of soil there. And just spread it out. And don't punch it down, just spread it out. You'll use too much soil that way. And then you put your seeds right on the top. And I put 5 or 6 or 7 or whatever happens to fall out of my hand in each one of these. And then I go back after I get them all done, and I cover them up with more of the same and press them down. Not real hard, just gentle. Unless it's a seed that says, do not put soil on the top of it. There are some, like basil seeds, that you don't want to cover up because they need light to germinate. That's why you need to read the seed packet. Then I forgot to tell the last group this, I numbered mine, because they aren't numbered to begin. I numbered the cells, and I numbered the front of this. So I've got a number on the thing, and I've got a number on the cells. Especially if you do a lot. If you're just doing one, maybe you won't have trouble with it, but you'll forget what you planted in what cell. Okay? So I just write them down on a piece of paper. I have a clipboard that I keep mine on. But I just write them down like this. Just write down your cell numbers, write down your flat number, and what you got in it generally, and the date that you planted it. There you have it. See, nothing expensive, scratch paper. Oh, by the way, this is on the back of a direction sheet that comes with these kind of seeds because they don't have anything on the back.
It also has holes on the bottom, like that.
Yeah,
Big holes. That's why this dirt's out here, and that's where it wicks it up through those holes.
Okay, so then after you do that, and you keep track of it, and every once in a while you'll forget, and something will come up and you say, that's not what I said that was. And then you put this on top of it, and it all comes together in one package. And these are the only thing I've found that don't last forever, and they turn yellow after a while, and you will have to replace them more often. But you leave them on here until your tallest plants hit the top, and then you want to take them off because they'll start mildewing and stuff. So that goes on the top.
This shows, this has 2 pictures. One of them is the, where they have the lids off of them, and these down here are the ones that are starting. And what I'd like for you to notice is on these, how close it is to the ceiling of our house, okay? This is in the, this is our kids' room, okay? And when we got through growing them, why, we started growing plants. But what I really want you to pay attention to is how close it is to the ceiling, because that's where we start them, see? And then down here below is after they've gotten transplanted into those other boxes. And this, of course, is so that they'll stay warm throughout the night, throughout the day, okay? It's about 18 inches from the ceiling. We measured that out before we...
Now those are just utility shelves that you can buy at Walmart.
So take a close look at that, all right?
This is a book that some of you might be interested in. And by the way, we start them up close to the ceiling like that because most things take warmth to germinate. Most of them germinate anywhere from 70 to 90 degrees. If you're trying to germinate chilies, they're not going to germinate unless they have at least 80 or 90 degree temperature.
Top of your refrigerator would probably work.
But you've got to put a light over it. You can't stick it back in the corner somewhere in the bed. This is a good book. I think it's still in print, but I think it's an improved version or something. It's called The New Seed Starter's Handbook by Nancy Bubell. And this is where I got the idea that you don't have to spend a lot of money and buy a lot of expensive equipment to garden, because she grows in everything.
We can't hear you behind the
Oh, I'm
book.
sorry. Behind the book. Yeah. She doesn't grow in any fancy stuff either, and she'll grow something in an old boot or something. And I thought, my gosh, I thought it was a lot more picky than that. And of course, I came from the Midwest where you could throw a seed on the ground and it grew. You know, I came out here and found out that doesn't work. But it does go through all of the things. It goes through the different kinds of diseases and this kind of stuff too. So it's a really good book if you're just starting. When we get through with them here, when they get 3 or 4 good leaves on them and they look nice and sturdy, then we transplant them into these things. And you can transplant into recycled cups. You don't have to have these things. Because we started in recycle. We were recycling plastic cups out of all the garbage cans. But it's really a good idea. But if you are doing it like we are in mass, they don't fit in the flats and they fall over when you're trying to carry them and this kind of stuff. So we had to go to this kind of stuff. But we reuse these over and over again, and people bring them back to me, and we use them again, and we use them again and again until they fall apart. What we use is a particular kind of mix that Manuel mixes up, and we kind of did this. Yes, pass it. We kind of did this by guess and by golly till we figured out what we wanted. And if you want the formula for it, I'll give it to you right now. You can come up with your own formula that works for you. You don't necessarily want to use this, but this is what we use. We use 6 parts of compost, and Manuel makes compost all year, and he's the one that mixes up all this dirt. 6 parts of compost, and if you don't have compost, which you should have with all your garbage, then you can buy it in bags. 2 parts of potting soil. Now we did that because it seemed to help aerate it a little bit more. And so we started putting in, we use super soil, which I think is the one Casey uses too. We use 4 parts of coconut fiber. This is coconut fiber. And we use this because, not because it's cheaper. This is the one thing we buy that's very expensive because it's a renewable resource and we don't want to use any more of the moss than we have to. And this works fine, and it's ground up coconut shells. I buy it from Peaceful Valley Farm Supply in California, which is a good place to get it. And I haven't found it any closer, and it costs as much to ship it as it does to buy it. But it does go a long ways. It comes in bales that are about so big bales. And no, it's not in there. I didn't bring the catalog. I'm sorry, I don't have the Peaceful Valley. But I think Peaceful Valley Farms web address is groworganic.com. I'm not sure, but I think that's close. But if you Google Peaceful Valley Farm Supply, you'll get it. And they do sell it in small bricks. They even sell it in brick size. So you can get it anywhere from brick size to this size to this size. Okay, and let's see. What are they cooking? Questions?